This is Talk is Sheep, the official podcast of the Wild Sheep Society of BC, brought to you by Sitka Gear. Come along as we bring conversations that matter to you into the high alpine. This episode is sponsored by our conservation partner, Yeti. Thank you, Sitka Gear and Yeti, for investing in healthy wildlife and sustainable ecosystems.
Okay, so we are here with the legend. It's been too long, man, and I know you do a ton of these, but I always love it when I get you on. And actually, one of my favorite podcasts of all times had you and Cam on together, and it was just legendary, man. You guys riffed off each other so much, but Cam absolutely, like, I feel like I got a pretty good relationship with Cam, but he absolutely refuses to come on the podcast. So thanks for being here, Adam.
Thanks for having me, Kyle. Yeah, I'll represent for the both of us.
Yeah, awesome for sure. So, and I love how you're like, like you're the guru. Like anyone that wants to know anything about hunting, sheep hunting, archery, mountain hunting, you're the guy you go to, and you're like the first thing you say is like, well, if you actually really want to know anything, you got to go talk to Cam because like I'm just like a neophyte. It's like you're so freaking humble as well on top of it, which I know is BS, but Cam obviously is a legend as well. So,
yeah, well, he's 2 years older, so he's got a couple more years doing it than me, but. Thank you for all the kind words. Most of them not true. Have done it a lot, so I've seen it change and grow, and have been plugged into the industry side of things too, which is interesting because you get to see the way that brands evolve and like sort of their product development process and what they've done. So like I do feel like have a little bit of a peek behind the curtain to share that perspective, and also somewhat have an obligation to do that too. I think that. There's a lot of information out there. It's really difficult to sort of drill down to the nuts and bolts of what you might want for something like a sheep hunt because there's so many options available. And a lot of that's to do with the business case that's being made for some of these companies. Like they kind of want to keep coming out with new stuff. And there's evolution to products that is real and makes a difference on the mountain. And then there's some stuff that's just changing in packaging or window dressing and coming out in new colors. And so I try to be like the real guy telling you, hey, this is my personal experience with a product that I've used. Sometimes I've tested some of this stuff for a year or two before it comes out or even longer, and try and give the perspective on, hey, this is what I think it does, what I think that it doesn't. I think and try and help people out when they're trying to make an investment, right? This gear is not inexpensive, and it is an investment. And sheep hunting is an investment of time and money on gear and travel into the backcountry. So I think it's you want to protect that investment, and you want to sort of hopefully make the right decision the first time, and not it's like the classic buy nice or buy twice saying. And so try to help people do that and give my perspective on what I've actually used and what I think works and doesn't. And then let people make their own choices too, because there's like we both know it too. There's a lot of great gear out there right now. A lot of most outdoor, most hunting brands are making some awesome stuff, and there's some factors that we could tease out and talk about maybe why you would choose certain things for certain hunts. But it's a rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
You should have a disclaimer in the description of this podcast, like when we start to go down the hole. Do you want to enter that rabbit hole, or do you not even want? Were you happy not knowing that minutia existed?
I think that's the cool thing about hunting and sheep hunting in particular is that, like, it's a lifestyle choice, right? And it's like literally most sheep hunters I know, hunters a little bit, but sheep hunters are the worst. And probably other don't get me wrong, like a diehard muley fanatic or a goat hunter is the same thing too. But like, there's a special breed where it's like. Literally, the second you step off the mountain, all you're thinking about is the next hunt, and you just spend the next 300 and whatever many days dreaming, thinking, planning, scheming, booking, buying, talking, and that's why, podcasts and all like that keeps people going year round. Like it's just nonstop, and it's the cool part of it too because. Man, I'm an old man now. I remember back in the day where it's like it was like a hunting blog. You're on the like a forum, and you're like, that's it. That's all there is. And it was pretty cool. It was pretty awesome. But we're pretty lucky now that there's so much stuff up there. But it's also a rabbit hole like hell. So
there's so much information, and that's the great thing about the expo too. I mean, that's a really interesting just timing and in sort of when that happens, and you have enough time to see and touch gear and try stuff on, especially things like boots and packs and things that you really actually want to interface with. It's not something that you can just look at the specs online and buy and hope that it's going to work for you. I think boots and packs are probably the two areas that are most personal, most fit based, most opinionated. Body types lend to certain types of packs, foot types lend to certain type of foots, personal preference, etc. So those are two areas I think we have a lot of great partners and vendors at the show that you can try on those products as well as clothing and rifles and optics and things like that. But those are two areas I think you do want to see them in person. And then the knowledge that's at the expo with the formal seminars, also that, but the informal conversations, just, you know, having a beer at the end of the night, learning from people and accumulating that knowledge on stuff that hasn't worked and stuff that has. So, yeah, the expo is like a great time of year. It's like right in the middle of the off season, and then you like have enough time to be ready for opener or whenever, if you're lucky enough to be chasing sheep for a sheep hunt or a goat hunt or a mountain hunt. You know, you have enough time to prepare and see what's going on, and that's the great thing about this. This podcast might drop sometime here where we're talking about sheep hunting is close to maybe a month and a half away or something like that, right? We're kind of in that red zone of those final tweaks. So yeah, it's awesome. It's part of the fun too. I feel like the gear is, you want to control what you can control, and your fitness, your mental preparation, your comfortability with your bow or your rifle, your gear, and then maybe your research on a hunting area and knowledge of sheep and horn aging and things like that. Like those are all sort of things that you can control. And then when you actually go sheep hunting, you're going to get hit with a bunch of uncontrollable stuff like weather, other hunters, animals, you know, just maybe you are drinking from a water source and you get giardia or something. Like you're going to get a lot of stuff thrown at you. So no matter what happens on a sheep hunt, I sort of want to feel like did everything I could to control what I could control. And then the chips are going to fall where they may. Let's go have a great time. Let's learn something. Let's see some new country. Let's burn some boot leather. But you don't want that feeling of, yeah, I got 350 days left to think about, you know, the wrong little choice that I made, or I'm sitting there at the put in, taking the price tag off my boot or something, being like, yeah, I've never worn these before, but I heard they're good, or whatever, you know, those sort of like very classic mistakes that I've made. And that's, I think we should ground this too. And I've made so many mistakes and we've made so many mistakes. And even though I'm a bit younger than you, Kyle, it's like we were doing it in the late 90s, early 2000s, where you were just sort of trial. It was all trial by fire and adopting a lot of stuff from backpacking, like backpack, just classic backpacking, and what products were available and the style at which you would move through the mountains. And then of course it's like quite a different activity in that, like backpacking, no backpacking that I know might end with this sort of massive amount of weight to be hauled out of the mountains like a hunt. So, you know, on a backpacking trip, you're starting at your starting weight and you're eating through your food and you're coming down in weight. Whereas a hunting trip, you might start at your weight, eat through your food, 2 pounds a day, end up at 40 pounds. And then if you're lucky enough, take a sheep or a goat, all of a sudden you're right back up to, you know, 100 or 110, 120 if you're taking it all. So it's just a unique problem for moving about the mountains that there's not too many other activities like it.
Yeah, super cool. You know, so there's a bunch of things that you just mentioned there that these are all rabbit holes that I really, really want to go down. And so first of all, you said, you know, just getting that gear and getting good gear. And it was like, you know, some people say, well, you don't need to be rich and have all this gear. And I agree with that in some capacity. And we look back in the, you know, 40s, 50s, 60s, and guys wearing their blue jeans and runners and out there killing sheep. But there's a counter argument to that too, as we know. And you know, it's arguably a little bit harder to kill a ram these days. There's a bit more competition, and so you got to work harder at it. And then like there's lots of guys that lost their hunt because they showed up in jeans, right? So there's a lot of good reasons to have good gear, and it doesn't mean that you have to be rich. Like I certainly didn't show up with the best equipment. But I still get bugged by my partner. I showed up with a 3-pound sweater on my first hunt. It was literally 3 pounds, and it was like this synthetic sweater. And he's like, "That has to stay behind." But I took it with me. I think I burnt it on like day 3 or something. Right? It's just like the stupid stuff you make is that on that first hunt, right? Like, and it's endless. But one thing I wanted to touch base with you on is, you talked about these things for preparation. You talked about, you can control your fitness, you can control your wardrobe, your mental or your equipment, your mental health. Which ones of all the 5 or 6 you listed there? What would you argue is the most important? Is it your fitness? Is it your gear? Is it your mental health? Like getting your brain engaged and like to go, or I'm just kind of curious what you feel like, because I see lots of guys out there like me that are. I'm not known for my physical prowess, but I'm still out there doing it, right? And I'm not as successful as a Cam or an Adam or some of these other guys. But what's the most important thing for somebody that's thinking about heading out in the mountain for the first time? What should they really be thinking about?
It is all what's in between your ears, I think, because you can have all the best gear, you can be in great shape. If you don't have the sort of mental ability to work through, like, all this great gear is not going to make it easy. It's hard, and that's the point. That's why we actually choose it. Like, you can't round the corners off of a mountain hunt to make it easy. You can make it enjoyable, you can make it safer, you can make it more accessible, but you can't make it. No mountain hunt that I've ever been on is, I would use the word, easy. And that's like the whole point. So we're out there to challenge ourselves. We're out there to see over the next ridge. And you have to sort of have like a mental attitude of, yeah, it's going to be hard at times. It's going to be uncomfortable at times, but that's actually why we're out here. Like, we're seeking discomfort. Like, we live in a pretty comfortable life. We have, these modern technology and comfortabilities, but we're actually like trying to go to the mountains to get away from that and to see if we can do it. So you have to have what's in between your ears. That's it. Give me somebody that's like mentally tough, that wants to be there, that doesn't quit, maybe isn't the fastest, maybe doesn't have the lightest gear every time over someone who does. And, there's a great saying too, sort of adopted from this like trail running world, that I've been like researching and getting into more a little bit in the last year or two. And it's not about who goes the fastest, it's about who slows down the least. So it doesn't matter if you go one step at a time and you plug along and someone's twice as fast as you on day 1. It sort of matters that you just keep going on day 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And that person who's twice as fast as you out of the gate might not be there when it matters later on the hunt. So that comes with a bit of experience, I think. I think it also comes with a bit of gratitude that we're just so lucky here in BC. I think it's actually quite mind-blowing to think about like the hunting opportunity that we have. And Sheep Society and Wild Sheep Foundation is like big proponent of like making this opportunity happen. And hopefully I'm sitting here talking to you. I've got my baby monitor with my son, who's not even 2. Hopefully he's hunting sheep if he chooses to when he's of age. And we're so lucky that we have that opportunity. And to kind of, to appreciate that, and to appreciate there's going to be mosquitoes and blisters and all these sort of hard parts of it, to remember, hey, this is actually like so cool that we get to do it. We get to do it almost every year if you're lucky enough to do it. You have the opportunity. There's opportunity there. There's people that don't live in BC or Alberta, Alaska, Yukon or Northwest Territories, who don't get to hunt, or Montana, maybe hunting the unlimited units, who don't get to hunt sheep every year or when they would want to. And let me tell you, it's like really cool that we get to do it. So I think it's a good thing to just like keep in mind when people are out there, and remember that, hey, we're super fortunate to do this.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Can you touch a little bit on the mental toughness then? Like you embody that, you're known for getting out there and getting after it. And you started young, right? Like your old man had you on the mountains when you were a young kid. Um, is that something that you think is totally learned? Or is it just something where you're just like you go and do it? And because there's some people that go on the mountain and they just, the famous Jack O'Connor saying, right? It's like you do it once and you either do it the rest of your life or you'll never be seen on the mountain again. Obviously, I butchered that, but you get the point.
Hmm.
What's some of the strategies like? Embrace the suck, all that sort of stuff. Like, what do you do? Like, and like, I certainly feel it. Like, I'll be out on a trip and like been on the mountain a few times, nowhere near what you've done, but there's been lots of times where I was like, but you just kind of get through it. So what are the strategies that you're using? And let's talk about on the mountain as opposed to like preparations, obviously,
Hmm.
a big part of that, but let's talk about on the mountain.
Yeah, great question. I think our brains, the way that they've evolved, at least mine, when I think about this type of stuff, is you want to break things down to as small of chunks as you possibly can when dealing
Mhm.
with a big task. So I like sort of apply that to fitness or work or getting a project done at home or something, which I am the most terrible of those three, no doubt. But breaking things down into as small of bite size as you need to, as the situation requires. So if you think about a 10-day hunt, what we would always say is 10-day hunt, break it up into three-day hunts, and then throw away a day for weather. So you've got a 3-day hunt, a 3-day hunt, a 3-day hunt. And generally, of course, it depends on terrain and what's happening, but you might say, okay, well, this is a day to move camp. This is a day to glass this drainage and this drainage. This is a day to, maybe hike a little bit, glass a different drainage, come back, move camp, go to a different spot, do another 3-day hunt there. Of course, that's like way simplified. I'm not saying that you should even do that, but just having a hunt plan and thinking about how you're going to hunt through the mountains and stone sheep are, if we're talking stone sheep in the north, they're very difficult to see. Like they are incredibly challenging to glass, especially for a more first time hunter. They are the color of rock. Like they're the color of the rocks that they live in. That's not why they're named stone sheep, but ironically, they're very difficult to see. So it is really hard for like a first time or beginner sheep hunter to actually sit there long enough and look at rocks for days, knowing that I'm in the right spot. I'm expecting to see sheep, but I'm not. And I think like immediately, like, and it happens all the time, every year. I don't have this master, but I am in pursuit of it because hunting is a lifelong pursuit, and like you never get to an end state of being an accomplished hunter, in my opinion. Like you're just on this continuum of learning. You get the little devil on your shoulder saying, "Oh, well, maybe I should leave. Maybe, oh, that looks good over there. Maybe I should just go home. I hunted hard 7 days. You know, maybe I'll go home and get back to it." And yet, every time that happens, I feel as if having a sort of plan will like lock you back in and say, "Oh no, I haven't done this. I haven't hit this drainage. Or I haven't. No, no, I'm good. I'm not doing an out and back. I'm doing a loop. So I'm not coming back. I need to stick with my plan." Of course, the plan can change based on every factor that you're seeing, and it should. But I think a lot of people just go, they're so much into their pack list. They're so much into their, oh, this guy told me to go to, XYZ Creek and there's rams there. And, they're so dialed in, or they're looking at trophy photos and I think that might be there. And they're so locked in on that. And then they actually get there and there isn't really a lot of like more on a micro level, like breaking down, like we're actually going to go and like camp on that bench. And then I think we're going to go here. I think there could be water there. And then let's like ditch our food here and then maybe scramble up that. Like there isn't a lot of that going on. Or perhaps I don't know. At least I'll just talk about me personally, because like when I was younger, I didn't do that. Like we just like show up, book the dates, start walking. Like no thought whatsoever, right? And so having a plan, I think is huge. And that can be as detailed as you want. That could be days, half days, whatever. Breaking things down into small bite size. That could be a 3-day chunk. Or like when you're talking about climbing a mountain, like you're literally going to climb a couple thousand feet and you're just counting to the next rock. Or like I'll count to 20. We'll count 20 steps and 20 steps, 20 steps. Like you're doing a workout, like you're doing 20 push-ups, 20 burpees. If you come from sort of like this fitness side of things. You look at something like CrossFit, or you look at like an ultra marathon, or you look at these like big tasks that people are doing, and they didn't start doing that. Like they didn't just come off the couch. They built up to it. And so there's like a training aspect of it, but also like their brains, I would think, and mine in that situation is like, I'm going to do 10 burpees. I have to do 250 in this workout. I'm going to do 10, and then I'm going to do 10 again. And I'm going to do 10 again. Like breaking it down. I know when people are packing out, or I'm packing out like an animal, and it's like, I'm literally looking at a tree, like 50 yards in front. I'm like, I got to get to that tree. And quite often when you do that, you find that you get to the tree and you actually feel okay. Depending on how heavy your pack is and how long you are into the deal. But yeah, so I think that's really helpful. It's just, and in life as well, just breaking things down. What's like the next best thing I can do right now that might slightly improve my situation? Like, that's it. Don't think about, oh man, what am I going to do on day 10? Oh, I spent all this money on this flight. I haven't seen any sheep. Wonder what my buddies are doing. Let me pull up my inReach. Just think about the next thing you can do like right now that could make a difference.
Yeah, that's great wisdom. Did you when you are planning your trips now, are you, like you talk about these, break it down to 3-day trips or stuff like that? Are you doing a lot of micro planning? Like obviously you got to evolve. You get on the ground. You've never been somewhere. You're like, oh, Google Maps, it looked like or whatever your Onyx, whatever you're using. Yeah, that looked like the drainage to be at, but clearly that's not like when you get on the ground. But do you spend a lot of time and sort of like, so you have a pretty detailed hunt plan before you leave the float plane?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Yeah, mostly because it's fun. Like it's sort of what you hit at the top of the call, which is, oh, we're just sitting here. You're only hunting 10 or 20 days a year, so the other 330, you're looking at your gear. I love looking at maps. Like I sort of have like a physical geography GIS background, like in academic world a very long time ago. So I just enjoy it. But the number of times that plan actually happens when it's on the mountain is like never. Like it never actually happens that way. And of course, like sometimes you don't even get to the lake or the spot you thought you were going to for whatever reason. Weather, maybe the plane broke down, or like there's like so many factors that could happen. Like you might not even get there, or you might get there, you think you're going for 10 and you actually are going for 6 because you couldn't get out. So you sort of have to, I used to sort of hesitate, like, oh, you got to have a plan, to give that advice. Cause then like, I think the pendulum can swing too far, which is like, oh my God, this wasn't in my plan. But I think your plan is flexible and adaptable, just like your attitude, and be ready for it to change because it will.
Yeah. On the lake side of things, so you're, planning a northern fly in and you've got plan A. Do you have lake B, lake C, kind of in the back? Or you're just like, no, you got plan A. And then if things go, I remember my first stone hunt, we're going into lake A, and the pilot's like, and we told him that, but he's like, I've flown 3 guys in there and we're not flying you in. And we're like,
Yeah.
well, we booked it. He's like, yeah, sorry, we're not flying you there. And
Yeah.
like, we didn't have a plan B. So I was literally on the phone, and it was like, we're in Dease Lake, there's no reception. And it was like literally texting and just like, what lake do I go to? Like, we didn't even know a lake. Like it was a shit show, really, to be honest. So do you sort of like, and I guess it's a little unfair because I'm talking to Adam Foss. Like you literally know 3/4 of the lakes in British Columbia where they kill rams. So, but for sort of the neophyte, kind of like a new guy, it's kind of, I think it probably behooves you to have a bit of a backup plan, even for your lake.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I generally like just sort of maybe have some ideas of some spots, but usually like those spots, if I know about them too, like probably a lot of other people know about them, and it's so busy out there these days. Like it's that scenario where they're like, well, yeah, we just dumped a bunch of guys in there. So, yeah, I don't know. I think this is like a more of a philosophical question, I suppose, because the question is like, is the goal to be like as efficient as possible about like killing a ram and like going to the highest density, highest chance area. Maybe for a newer hunter, it is that, right? I think like, you go through these sort of like ebbs and flows where like, I guess what I'm trying to spit out is like, my goal isn't necessarily like to kill a ram or to be like, I need to get to this like spot. I know there's going to be rams there. Yeah, that's the goal. I'm like highly competitive, mostly with myself. But yeah, where I'm going with it is depends on what your goals actually are. And I think like my goal, you say, hey, yeah, lots of lakes flying too. It's like, yeah, but I realized about 5 years ago that I'll die before I actually go to all the sheep hunting spots that I want to go to, even just in BC, even in Region 6 or Region 7. Like I won't make it to all of them.
Mhm.
And so there's this like realization of, okay, well, what actually am I trying to do? Am I trying to see different places? Am I trying to see like legendary, like retrace the steps of like legendary sheep hunts? Like I have sort of been interested in that. Or am I trying to go to a little spot that's not even a named lake just to see if there's even sheep there? More exploratory, or am I trying to go to like a higher density zone and maybe I'm taking a newer person or someone who just want to, hey, we want to see some sheep, trying to like hunt, like larger based, bigger curling, better genetic sheep. Like, yeah, maybe there's spots to go do that. So it depends on like, I'd say like depends on the goal. It would be smart to have a backup plan or a plan B or a plan C. The other sort of philosophical like comment I would make is people are obsessed with like the spot. Like, where's the spot? Like your exact situation. Like, I'm calling looking for a spot. There's a lot of spots that hold sheep, and there's a lot of spots that hold sheep that you wouldn't even think to go to. People are sort of like, there's these named lakes, and people go and, oh, I heard they flew out 5 rams there, and that seems like a great spot, and I want to go there. And it's like, well, maybe, but also like that's like 5 less rams that are there, and how old are those rams? Like, what's the pressure like on the resource in that spot? Like, might be some like maybe you don't even want to fly in the lake. Maybe it's like drive your truck up the Alaska Highway and pound into some bush and start walking. Like there's this obsession, like I gotta fly in, I gotta go to the spot. And I think there's an evolution of a hunter that you kind of get to a place where it's sort of like, well, one, I maybe want to go on a different adventure and see a different part of the province. And two, like, who cares? Like, let's just, spin the dial and go to a spot. And, I'm sort of contradicting my comment about having a plan, but spin the dial, go to a spot and use your tactics and your experience and your mental toughness and your gear to like hunt your way through it as best you can and then find what's there. Cause some of these like spots you would that don't kill a lot of sheep in, and they don't even have a lot of sheep. It's like if you find a ram there, it might be like a really big old ram that just like nobody would think of going. So that's my learnings and thoughts and musings. And I've obviously spent a lot of time thinking about it when I'm sitting there glassing and not seeing anything. And I'm like, why am I in this spot? Because like I've flown into spots where it's like, oh man, this is like a total goat zone. Like, there's like no sheep, like you've been on hunts, like 10-day hunts, glassing hard, bunch of guys, 75 mountain goats, zero sheep, zero sign of sheep. And like, you look at it on Google Earth, it looks like it's in between two great spots. It's the zone. It's just like whatever. If that little pocket is like too steep, too wet, doesn't hold sheep, or we didn't find them, you're kind of rolling snake eyes and back to the drawing board.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Um, Touch a little bit on sort of, your preseason scouting and like maybe you're looking for some new areas. And like you said, there's these high density areas which are really appealing. And then you show up and there's 20 other sheep hunters that had the same idea, and you're sort of combat hunting, which some people are probably okay with, and I'm just not like that. But and I know that you're kind of a fringe guy too. You're not always going to the sort of, drop names, lake names out there. So, like, what kind of, when you're scouting, what are you kind of looking for? Are you just low density areas, fringe areas? What would a typical sort of sesh for you look like when you're like, hey, I want to find a new spot to go sheep hunting, or you don't know, assuming you're going to go to an area and just have no idea where there's sheep, how would you approach that?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of how to answer that so it's like a useful answer. I'm just sort of like scanning stuff all the time too. I mean, I sort of have like pins of stuff that looks interesting. Okay, like, you know, reverse engineering, like how to get to a spot based on how it looks, I think is like a fun mental problem. I think you're sort of, if I could say, you know, a couple things I'm thinking about, it's like, okay, you know, I'm sort of looking for like classic habitat, like maybe big bowls, green, south-facing slopes, escape terrain that's like sort of steeper because sheep want to be like among that escape terrain, but they're not necessarily going to be right in it. You know, you want these sort of grassy bowls that look like really big and juicy and a spot to find sheep. You know, I think that can be a little bit, you can get stuck on that because like quite often, like at least from my experience, like a big grassy, beautiful bowl, it's like there's probably sheep there. There's probably, you know, potentially a lot of sheep there. Might not be any rams, might not be any mature rams. Like the mature rams are gonna maybe live, they could be in the timber, they could be up in the rocks, getting away from the bugs. Like they might not be in that sort of beautiful classic like sheep hunting, probably because of hunting pressure, probably, but maybe also you know, sheep are interesting, right? I think they have a sort of mind of their own, a personality of their own. Like sometimes rams want to be off on their own, living in some freaking rock pile glacier thing, even though there's a perfectly good grassy spot for them to just be living, right? And they might go down there and feed for an hour a day in the morning, hour in the evening, but you know, the other 12 hours a day, they're just living in that rock that they're almost impossible to see. So yeah, I think kind of maybe getting off topic a little bit, Kyle. But I think I'm looking for stuff that how like what's access like. So I'm like looking for something that's like okay, there's access, but like not too much, not too accessible. Like it might be a 2 day walk to get to that spot. Like there's a airstrip, there's a highway trailhead or something like that, and like I want to go and find a way to like get to there. I'm also looking sort of at like how you could glass it and how you could actually hunt it. And I'm in like a bit of a unique position too because like I'm a bow hunter and that's like all I do. So like a lot of some of the stuff like that I've been on and like that's a great ram spot and I go in there and you know there's rams and there's like nice rams and it's like not in a million years would you be able to kill a ram with a bow there. Or
Mm.
I shouldn't say that, but it's so challenging. It's like big bouldery rocks that teeter when you walk on them. And you know, you can hear like you've probably been in a basin like that before where you're glassing sheep, you can like hear them moving around. And so that's sort of what I'm looking at too. Like, is this even bow huntable? But if you're not a bow hunter, how you're going to actually hunt it, where from like a hunt plan perspective, like where are you going to glass from? Where's water? Like those sorts of factors are almost equally as important. Um, but yeah, man, I don't know. I do a lot of like I hunted X this spot, and then I'm like at that spot, and maybe it's not a great spot, but I'm like looking around, and I'm like, oh, that'd be cool to get. Or I make it to a spot on the end of like a 10-day hunt, and I'm looking in, and I'm like, oh, that would be cool. Like I wouldn't come from this way, but maybe I could come from that way. So you sort of accumulate a little bit of knowledge and just add to it year over year. And man, it is like an adventure for me, just seeing different parts of the province. Like you know, somebody draws like an LEH or something in Northwest BC, and it's like I got to go on that because like I want to see it. I want to see that provincial park, or I want to see you know that drainage, that river that is like either iconic or just you know has this like element of beauty. So I probably give up some efficiency of hunting for just trying new places and just like wanting to see different things.
Mm. Awesome. Are you planning a sheep hunt this fall, or do you have a mountain hunt planned for BC? Or
Yeah, I'm gonna get out there. Yeah, I'm gonna try. I haven't really hunted a ton for myself in the last couple of years, so I'm gonna go for it. I think part of that's like being a new father and not really wanting to be gone for these like big chunks of time. But yeah, I'm gonna go try and yeah, just see what happens. You know, who knows what could pop up. Don't know if you
yeah,
don't go.
yeah, for sure. And has Frankie been on a? She's been on a sheep hunt with you when you're hunting, but she wasn't hunting for herself. Is that correct? Can't remember what the.
Yeah, she's never hunted sheep herself. Has she ever had a sheep tag? No,
Right.
no. She's been on
Yeah.
lots of complete cluster boondoggles a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, she
Uh,
just like you should get her on the podcast. You can ask her about all this stuff. And she's done a little bit of that. she just hasn't, and I think she's maybe like teetering on the edge of it, but she just loves to be out there. She loves to be camping and hiking, and like doesn't feel the like strong like urge to be like, oh, I really want to like see what that's like to like cross that threshold and actually like hunt a sheep. Um, no, she has. We've done a hunt together. Yeah, that was like totally her dedicated hunt. Um, and so yeah, I think she's curious about it, but yeah, we'll see. She also just like respects them as like these incredible animals that you get to go watch, and you might not find one that's old enough, so it's pretty cool to just see them out there doing their thing.
Right on. So you've got a young son, obviously. When did you first go on your first mountain hunt with your dad? How old were you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I guess depends on how you would define like a mountain hunt, but I think we would like day hunt around Canmore, Alberta, where we grew up in Cochrane, in some of those like classic bow zone areas for bighorns. When I was 12, so you have to be 12 to hunt in Alberta. And then I think I remember I was in grade 9, so I would have been like 13, turning 14, backpack hunt. So me and my dad went in, I think it was Labor Day long weekend, and we went for maybe 4 days, 3 or 4 days. And I had a black and white film camera that I was taking in high school. Like in high school, I signed up for a photography class. So I like so it was like this culmination of like my whole sort of like life path was like kicked off at this moment, which is backpack sheep hunting with my dad, bringing a camera and taking photos, going back into the darkroom at school, developing the film, the negatives, developing the prints. And yeah, I just remember like kind of coming up into like the Alpine very distinctly, like kind of that first like holy shit, like big bowl kind of classic Alberta Rockies moment, and that was like totally hooked me, and sort of been a big part of my life ever since.
Yeah, awesome. That's so cool, man. It just gives me chills thinking about it. And then you mentioned your son who's resting right now, and he's what, 10 years from that? 9 years?
Yeah,
He'll be
if,
doing the same thing.
it's crazy if he wants to be. Yeah, yeah. I remember we were packing a sheep out. I drew a U tag in Canmore, and I was with my dad. And we were lucky enough to get one, and I think I was like 14, turning 15, and what's super cool. People kind of ask. I get the question somewhat often, like, "Oh, should I take my kid?" Or is he old enough, or is she old enough? And I always sort of say, I mean, you have like no scope of what is actually hard at that age either. Like you don't
Yeah.
actually, you're like, and it's almost like Frankie in the way that she started hunting and going on a lot of these backpacking trips. Like she had no like barometer on what this is supposed to be like or expectation. It's like, okay, you're just like jumping in the deep end. And as a kid too, same, like no idea, like, what this is going to be like at all. So I think almost like leveraging that ignorance, doing it in the right way, and being supportive, and like, having the right gear, and being safe for sure, but almost leveraging the fact that like, yeah, this kid's like not gonna like know what's actually hard, and your physical ability at that age too is like, yeah, you can kind of give her. I mean, you can't pack the weight, like you can't carry like a ton of weight, and if you get an animal, like you're probably gonna need someone help you pack it out. But as far as like getting on a trail and walking, like you can do it.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's great. Great advice for sure. Okay, let's switch up a little bit and touch on some gear stuff. So, we kind of touched on it earlier on, but maybe some of the evolution of the gear. I know you've been really involved, and that's the one cool thing I was thinking lots when you were talking about the Salute to Conservation Mountain Hunting Expo. We had Barclow in the room. You and Barclow did a talk on gear development, and then it was interesting. I sat with John and had I can't remember where we were visiting. I think it was actually I did a podcast with him in Reno. Yeah, actually, it was one of our earlier podcasts, and he's talking about he was bringing stuff to market. It wasn't ready to go, and so it got pushed like a year or two down the road, right? So obviously Sitka is a big supporter of what we do here in BC, but obviously world class gear. It's they put so much into it, so much effort. I know that you guys do a lot of field testing on it. You've got a lot of new gear out there. John's always getting out and after it. So maybe let's talk about some must-have stuff for your pack and any new gear that you're seeing out there that you're loving right now.
Yeah, great stuff. Lots of different ways we could take that. I think, John, so for anyone that is listening that doesn't know John Barklow, maybe they've been living under a rock or something like that, I guess, for the last while. But John, so he's the one of the senior product managers at Sitka. I think he's been there almost 10 years, but comes from like a cold weather military training background and has sort of dovetailed that into gear development I think he's been doing it for 30 years. And, he's also like a good friend and just a great all around guy. He would talk about, this sort of classic. He's got a great way of like delivering this information that hopefully I don't fumble through too much. But he would talk about this like 7-piece system, right? Like you kind of want these like very basic parts of a clothing system. So maybe if we just hone in from like a clothing perspective and let me see if I can even remember them. But you want your like base layer, some sort of insulation, some sort of wind blocking layer, your rain gear, some accessories. What is that, 5? Where am I at? Something like that. So you want these sort of like, I think it's a good thing to think about for sheep hunting. You want to think about like categories of gear. And so I think what people do is like they'll double up on things. Like they'll have like 2 insulation pieces and like maybe no wind blocking layer, or they'll have like 3 base layers but no insulation. So from like a very just sort of basic perspective, like you kind of want, your gear to your clothing, if we're talking about clothing, you want it to be specific. You want it to be able to be adaptable and do a few different things. But the biggest thing that I've learned from clothing is like you actually end up with a ton of redundancy when you just sort of go, hey, I want to bring, like, I have a synthetic base layer, I have a puffy coat, I have maybe a wind stopper, and then I have my rain gear. And then you sort of are sitting at a truck like, well, I don't know, maybe I should throw this like extra vest in, or in your example, like this hoodie that might be comfortable. That sort of like steps on your insulation piece. And like, you don't actually probably need both of those. We used to bring extra pairs of pants, like just have 1 pair of pants in your pack. Because if your pants get wet, you have a dry pair. And it's like, we never use that extra pair of pants ever. So, there's these levels of like redundancy that I think that you can sort of whittle down pretty quickly. I love my personal preference in pants is like as light as possible, as stretchy as possible. Like, and if we're talking, I think we should maybe scope this conversation of like what probably 90% of people are doing if they're listening to this podcast about mountain hunting or sheep hunting, probably hunting sheep in August, maybe September, not really getting into the late season stuff, because that's sort of a whole other can of worms and thinking about it like a little bit differently. Although not totally differently, there's like still some concepts that apply, but I like my pants to be like as thin and light as possible. So for pants, I'm going to use the Ascent pants from Sitka. They're really stretchable, dry really fast. They're awesome. You can put knee pads on them through a little Velcro sleeve, which is actually great when you're crawling around all the sharp rocks. And then from there, I'm going to wear like synthetic, usually a synthetic base layer, like a core lightweight that has a built-in hood. Big fan of something with a built-in hood, sun protection, bug protection. Also, if you're bow hunting or even just glassing, peeking up over a knob on a sheep, like you have a little bit of concealment. You can cover your face. That's super nice. The merino stuff that Sitka's come out with, I think it's been out for 3 years now. It's a merino synthetic blend. It's super nice. And I've been away from merino for quite a long time because of like, there's a synthetic merino conversation, which is basically like synthetic's going to dry faster. Wool's not going to dry as fast, but it's not going to stink. It's going to be warmer when wet. It has these like natural fibers in it that is going to, like I said, be warmer when wet, be cooler if it's wet, but it's not going to dry as fast. So that's like the price you pay. Synthetic, it's going to stink after 10 days, and it doesn't have those natural properties that wool has. So they sort of, Sitka's blended the two of them to make this like merino blend. And I've been actually wearing that stuff mostly because these hunts are longer, and it is nice to be able to say, hey, look, I only really need to bring one. Like I only bring one base layer. I might bring like a t-shirt, like a tiny little like merino wool t-shirt, but By and large, and like this is sort of another concept that we're gonna like take an off ramp to for a second, that we should come back to the clothing, but you actually like if you have a ton of extra base layers, or like I said, like extra pants, and you have high quality gear, if you do get wet, if you get your base layer wet, what you want to do is get in your sleeping bag at night with your puffy coat and wear it until it dries. What you don't want to do is it's wet, you throw it to the bottom of your tent, put on a fresh dry one. That feels really good in the moment, but then now you have this total liability. You have this like pile of wet clothes. You have to deal with it at some point. So you're better off, like almost better off, just like not having an extra base layer to go into, or really resist doing that. Just keep the wet one on. If you can stomach it, put your puffy coat on, get in your sleeping bag. Your body temperature will cook all that material dry as you sleep at night. It might be a little bit less comfortable to sleep, but it will do that. And that's like where the rubber meets the road. That's why the saying cotton kills applies. Like cotton does not do that. Synthetic does, merino does, not as well as synthetic. But that's actually why you're like paying, $150 for a shirt compared to buying something maybe from Cabela's and just that's either cotton or fleece or something like that. That's not going to dry nearly as fast. So you're investing in this technical clothing system. You should leverage it to allow it to perform the way that it was meant to perform. And a big part, I think, that people leave out on this same sort of wavelength is your sleeping bag is actually part of your clothing system, or like part of your emergency. It's like your shelter, but you also use it to dry your clothes, and you wear your clothes if they're damp from sweat, or you dip yourself in the creek by accident. You can wear that into the sleeping bag and cook yourself dry. So, yeah, been trying a little bit more of the merino stuff. It's nice. And then, sort of Sitka's like bread and butter being the partnership that they have with Gore. And for anyone that doesn't know what Gore is, WL Gore and Associates, the company that makes Gore-Tex a windstopper. You'd see, Gore-Tex CNIT or ProShell, like you'd see in that technology in a lot of other outdoor brands in the mountaineering or ski space. You see this same technology in what Sitka is able to do, but with their partnership, they're able to test out a lot of stuff in the lab, get like the first crack at some of these laminates, or they'll make laminates like specific to hunting that maybe need a little bit more, durability or a little bit more breathability than like maybe a ski piece needs. So where I go with all that conversation is headed is like the rain gear part of the story for sheep hunting is like, it's like maybe one of the most important pieces of clothing. If you are going to invest anywhere, I'd be like, get great rain gear. Sitka makes a dew point rain gear set. I think it's a 10-ounce pant and a 13-ounce jacket. So you're like looking at 1.5 pounds for a medium, or a little bit more. It's going to roll up into its hood, and the pants will roll up. Like you're looking at a really nice small package. It's sort of everything you need, nothing you don't. Doesn't have a ton of bells and whistles, but has the ability to keep you dry. And the durability on something like the dew point is going to be okay, like pretty good. If you're on the West Coast and you're pounding up after goats in terrace or something like that, and you're beating it up every single day, and you're a guide and you go 60 days in a row, like it's gonna have challenges. Like it's probably gonna have pinholes. You might tear it. That's just the reality of lightweight gear. But for sheep hunting, I kind of want to go as light as I can when it comes to rain gear, with the caveat of like, it's not going to fall apart. It's going to be able to do some bushwhacking. And then there's like a conversation of like, okay, well, what do you accept? What's the acceptable level of risk associated with the clothing that you're choosing? And like, I have a roll of Gorilla Tape wrapped around my trekking pole. Like if I actually ripped my rain gear and had a 2-inch cut in it because I was kneeling and I'm sneaking up on a sheep and there's razor sharp shale or something, like I'm going to just tape it. Or I'm going to have a super glue. Like I have a patch kit for my sleeping pad. Like I'm going to patch my sleeping bag my sleeping pad if it has a leak, or if my rain gear rips. Like, I don't know if I can even count on. I mean, I maybe can count on one hand the number of times I've had to do that on my rain gear, and it's usually below the knee when you're dealing with like sharp rocks, crampons, snowshoes, things like that. Like you are going to get some tears. That's just the reality of it. So, yeah, dew points like really just sort of I think the gold standard where you're hitting this like Venn diagram of light, durable, waterproof, like the sweet spot for sheep hunting. But Yeah, I actually don't bring that much stuff. Like my clothing's pretty like it's pretty trimmed down. I'm gonna bring an insulation jacket of some sort, rain gear, a base layer, pair of pants, some gloves, a hat, and my sleeping bag is part of that. I know, people think about like cold and getting cold. The reality is like you will probably be cold at some point in the mountains. That's a fact. And the other point that comes right behind that is you will warm back up. Like you can actually thermoregulate your body by the exertion and output. Like if you're cold, you can do some push-ups or you can go for a walk or you don't have to. The solution to warm up doesn't always have to be, oh, I just brought a whole extra jacket and I'm just going to put it on. You have other options too, which sort of leans us right into like you got to have your nutrition dialed so you have enough fuel so that you can like run that engine to warm yourself up. But yeah, I think that that's like when people are packing clothing, you get this sort of panic. You get the like your gears dialed, and then you get the panic like just in case.
Mm-hmm.
Like let me just throw that in just in case, just in case, just in case, and just in case sort of adds up to a lot of
Now it's
different.
5 pounds. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of different
Mm-hmm.
things. So, um, yeah, I think there's a little bit of a mental side of it there too, where it's like, hey man, if I have all my clothes on and I'm a little bit cold, that's like okay. And goes back to like what we started this conversation with about mental toughness and just framing things up, which is it's going to be a little bit hard, and that's the point. So there's a continuum on like where people are at too, right? Like there's a conversation around, do you want to have a super comfortable hunt? Are you bringing somebody for the first time? Do you know the spot? Like, do you know exactly where you're going? Maybe you want to throw in a few extra luxury items. And are you going second, third, fourth week of September? Like, yeah, maybe you want to bring puffy pants and a legit four season tent. Like, are you going on opener first or second week of August? Like, it could snow 2 feet, but you could probably push it a little bit harder and know that you'll be able to deal with it. So it kind of becomes this evolution where, and for me personally, like every 5 years, I kind of have an event happen where it sort of like whacks me back into reality where I'm like, oh yeah, shit, I actually do need a four season tent. I should have had puffy pants on that trip. Like, probably shouldn't have, gone like as light as I was. And that's just like a good reminder. And those are I've been fortunate that those aren't, you know, like dangerous, I suppose, but they're like they stick in your mind and you remember, oh yeah, like I should actually throw that in. So yeah, everyone's in a little bit different boat on like where their comfortability lies with like the amount of risk that they want to take on, how much weight they want to pack, what how much they're willing to suffer, and if they want to have fun. And I'm somewhere sort of in the middle too. Like I'm not necessarily like I'm eating hot meals, I'm drinking coffee, like I'm bringing wet wipes, like I'm bringing stuff that like maybe people would be like, well, that's unnecessary, but I want to have fun too. Like quite often, like I look forward to it all year round, and like I'm fortunate enough to do these trips with like really special people, and I want to have like fun too. So yeah, I'm not fully like wanting to just it to be a complete sufferfest.
Yeah, right on. Just a couple quick ones. One pair of socks or two?
Total on the trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely bring extra socks. Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
that's like the one thing where you do want extra socks. I'll usually bring three pairs.
Yeah.
Theory being you get one wet, you put on your fresh pair, your wet pair is drying maybe in your sleeping bag, and then you can kind of like just rotate them. But yeah, three pair or two, but yeah, I think threes is like probably a good idea.
Yeah, cool. And what about gloves? What kind of different gloves are you wearing? You got a technical pair. What's your insulation layer? Like, what are you wearing for that?
Yeah, I really like they actually don't make them anymore. They're called the Blizzard mitts, but they're a Sika product. They were a two layer, so they were a Gore-Tex outer shell and they were a Primaloft puffy insert, and they would just go in together. I actually like mitts, oddly enough. I think it comes from like a bow hunting thing where like you can get pinned down for many hours, and like you're holding like the cast aluminum of a bow riser, and your hands freeze. And so like mitts, you're warm and you're able to just slip them off and shoot your bow. I think those like a few different companies make them, but like those puffy mitts, like I think some brands call them like a glassing mitt. Those are awesome. Like those are awesome for glassing and just like they pack down. They don't weigh anything. It's same idea as a puffy coat. So I'll usually bring like a puffy mitt, and then I'll wear like kind of a more lighter but like leather palmed glove that's like more for rocks and bugs. And then that's probably it. Yeah, I would maybe throw like the shell of that mitt in if I thought it was going to be, a coastal hunt and super wet. But yeah, that's how I go about it.
Right on. Just, I guess we'll go down the rabbit hole a little bit. What are you doing for a sleeping bag? Synthetic for sheep hunt?
Yeah, I think yeah, like the treated down has gotten pretty damn good. So just for folks listening that are maybe not as deep down this rabbit hole as we might go into, like you've got this sort of balance of like a down sleeping bag or a synthetic sleeping bag. Traditionally, down is warmer per weight. It's more packable per weight. Synthetic is heavier per weight unit. The kicker is that when down was wet, it would collapse. You lose all what you're trying to do with down or any sleeping bag is create an air pocket. That air warms up. That creates a barrier from, you're basically cooling from your body to the outside air. What happens when down is wet is that collapses. So you don't have as big of a buffer and an air pocket. Synthetic doesn't. It actually like is hydrophobic, so it doesn't absorb water, so it stays stacked and has structure to it, so it's going to trap that air. Probably in the last, I don't know, 10 to 15 years, maybe even longer, treated down has come a long way, and a lot of brands are creating a down that has a treatment to it that's hydrophobic that works like pretty damn good. So if we're talking like August sheep hunt and I like look at the weather and it's like, dicey, gonna rain, maybe I'll throw the synthetic in. But most of the time, I'm probably gonna bring the treated down because I have a high level of confidence that if it does get a little bit wet, it's gonna stay lofty. I would say regional specific, time of year specific. So like West Coast, probably synthetic every time, no matter what time of year. West Coast late season, definitely. Maybe if I'm like tagging along on a hunt with my brother in Alberta in the Rockies, like it's drier. And like if it's cold, that snow's going to be dry too. So actually like maybe not as concerned. Although like some people like just wouldn't go into like a below zero hunt without a synthetic or any mountain trip, sort of like personal preference a little bit. But yeah, these are all like quiver items sort of, right? Like
Hmm.
you could have, and that's why Frankie, when she's like, I'm reorganizing the garage for the 19th time, and she knows like what actually goes in a pack, and we're trying to get it as light as possible. And it's like, well, how do you have so much gear if what you're actually trying to do is get it down as small as possible? I'm like, well, I got a tent for this. I got a sleeping bag for that. I got trekking poles for that. I got the right boot for that trip, right? And yeah, you don't actually have to take it to that level of detail, but it's kind of fun. And yeah, it's a quiver item. I think sleeping bags is like a quiver item.
Yeah, right on. Um, Talk about emergency gear. First of all, what's your go-to for a communicator? I think you're an inReach guy, right?
Yep, InReach, yep. I have been using those since they came out. Yeah, InReach is interesting, right? I mean, I think there's a level of comfortability and reliance on something like that it'll work, that you can either get help or you can pull the pin and hit the SOS. The reality is like that's not always the case. That could be because of weather. Like if you're in a tough situation, like yeah, if you break your leg on a perfectly nice bluebird day and a helicopter needs to come, you're probably, and you're in a spot where a helicopter can land, you're probably happy you have the inReach and you're good to go. And let me preface this: you should definitely have an inReach, like for sure, 100%. There's no reason not to. It's such an inexpensive, um, like peace of mind, and like peace of mind for your family too, like that they know, hey, look, like there is an option if something happened. But the reality is like that might not always be an option, even if you have the inReach. So I think that there's a comfortability with like, okay, cool, strap on the inReach and away I go. If I get in a problem, I just hit this button. And I think it's actually, there needs to be like the case to be made of like some level of like knowledge, experience, education, risk mitigation, because you kind of hear stories like maybe more recently of guys who hit the inReach or, um, yeah, just maybe newer to the backcountry, and sometimes they get pulled out, or sometimes they're not able to, but perhaps a little like jumped in a little too deep over their heads, and or like I've even read articles of like I think backpackers being like, we were hungry, so we hit the SOS, like we didn't bring enough food. And they were like, they flew in and they're like, what? You're hungry? Like, what are you talking about? So yes, I'm an inReach guy. Definitely think everyone should have one, but remember, it's not a like get out of jail free card.
Hmm. Yeah. And what are the main, other than the obvious, I think everyone thinks they need a first aid kit, and that there's the full extreme on that. There's like the Walmart thing that you spent $5 on, and then there's kits that you can spend $1,500 on. So, what are sort of your main go-to things that absolutely you have to have when you're in the mountains that you recommend?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Yeah, I'm like, what's like realistically going to happen, and what are you going to use? Like, you're probably going to stab yourself with a knife while you're skinning out a sheep. You're probably like what you could deal with. The most likely like times that you would bust a first aid kit with. So I'm going to have like lots of bandages. I have something called Quick Clot, which is like a military like quick clotting device that people would use on the battlefield. I usually almost always have that right in my right waist belt hip pocket, along with my inReach, especially if I'm by myself. So those are a couple things to think about. And yeah, mitigating against cuts. I'm gonna have like some drugs, some ibuprofen, some Tylenol. Um, I'm gonna have like a lot of that KT tape for blisters. I'm gonna have yeah, I think tape, like Gorilla Tape, is just like very functional. You could like splint yourself if you had to. You could, wrap it around a wound. There was times where I carried like like a legit tourniquet. And there's other times that I haven't. I'm currently like not bringing one for the most part. I think a good piece of advice is like, what do you know? Do you have like intimate knowledge of knowing how to use? Um, and like, too, I'm fortunate enough to like have a couple buddies who are doctors, and like they have their suture kit with them or something. It's like they could actually stitch you up. If you have a suture kit and you can't do a surgeon's knot or whatever you need to do, like it's actually just dead weight, right? So there's that element of like, yeah, bring a safety kit, bring some stuff, but like also know how to use it. I'm trying to think what else is in there. I'd say like I'm not super minimal on it, and I could probably bring like a little bit of more stuff. Um, yeah, and I think that there's like a story to be told, which is like you are days away from help, and so like I try, even just like the way I move around and like hike and stuff. Like if I'm hiking here in Kelowna up Knox, like I was just carrying my son out to the little swimming hole, and I'm wearing sandals and like running around like an idiot, and ladies are like, what do you do? Like you're wearing sandals, you know? Um, and guys do are just like, what are you doing, man? Um, but it's like, well, if I break my ankle up there, like I can see town. There's somebody walking by me in 5 minutes. When you're on a sheep hunt, you're in the backcountry, like you are ways away from help. So I think the risk mitigation side of things is just like a good thing to keep in mind. Like that's why I like trekking poles, and anything that's gonna sort of like mitigate like a big fall, or like something where if you do fall, you're not going to go like ass over tea kettle or something like that. So thinking about that, and then thinking about the way you move through the mountains, like, I've heard some stories, and like, even like Tanis being on the podcast where like that rock came down and like took her leg out and stuff, like thinking about ways of moving up a mountain to be like, from like the climbing world, they sort of have a whole like communication around like, rock, or hey, I'm entering this chute, like all clear, I'll tell you when I'm up, like, because I think like if knock on wood, like if something is gonna happen, it's gonna be some like a rock thing, I would think, like someone kicked
Hmm.
a rock free and you're in a chute or something like that. I think less like, falling off a cliff because it's going to be more like something happened that was out of your control and got you. And like, you see kind of rocks and stuff falling all the time in the mountains. And if you're in like glacier country, like you can hear them and that sort of thing. So there's some like risk mitigation and just like, what are you comfortable with? And yeah, and communication too, I think is like helpful. But that just comes with experience and like, I think one thing that's like maybe missing from all this stuff, and definitely the mental side of it that I would be behooved to like mention, or I'd be silly to not mention, which is like the partners at which you choose to go hunting with are like it's a very important choice. So go with people that have like similar sort of risk tolerance, and ideally like maybe more experience than you that you can learn if you're newer. But I think trying to figure out like being with someone in the mountains who is like, you can like, excuse me, think through challenging problems and like work together as a team and not have this like, in like snow sports, like they call it sort of like like a hero halo where it's like, oh, okay, Kyle, we're going to go sheep hunting. And you think that I've hunted a lot. So it's like, you just do everything that I say, and we're going to camp here because I camped here last time. And, that's actually like how sometimes problems happen, like avalanche fatalities and things like that, where it's like, well, we all were just following the guy, like the guide or like the guy with the most experience or gal with the most experience. And, you sort of want to be able to like check people and think about, hey, like, well, what could happen? What are the risks here? Like, yeah, that actually doesn't look like a great idea. See all those trees that are bent over? Like, that's an avalanche chute. Like, and there's a ton of snow up there. Like, maybe we don't want to camp here. So I think that that's a part that, choose your hunting partners wisely for the purposes of this conversation. And, of course, like if you're the prepared guy with the great first aid kit, but your buddy doesn't have one, or your buddy doesn't know how to use it, and you're actually the one that got hurt, it doesn't really, help you. So I think having like your hunt plan and like a little bit of your safety plan, which is like, hey, look, I've got this in my pocket. Okay, you've got inReach. Like before we lose service, my inReach is tested. Kyle, I have your contact. Let's send a message. Hey, let's just wait. Like, we're going to be hunting for 10 days. Let's just like take an hour here, set our stuff up. Okay, we got it. Hey, I have this in my first aid kit. Cool. You got that. You got the tripod. I got the spotting scope. Okay. Well, what happens if like I, fall down or like, let's communicate. Like the times that I've been like, oh man, something bad could happen is like you get split up, or, the light's fading, it's dark, and it's like, we should have had a plan that we were going to just like on the other side. If I'm not back by this time, let's meet up at this Y in the creek. So you just want that partnership and someone that is like looking out for you and vice versa. I kind of hate to say like, use the word like macho or whatever, but I think we're like trying to be, like I said earlier, we're seeking out a challenge. Like we want to be like tough, but the reality is like we want to go home. And there's there's like, from the mountaineering world, I think I've said it in a seminar before, maybe people have heard me repeat this guy, but it's like there's 3 goals, and like in this order, we want to arrive home alive, we want to arrive home as friends, and then we want to arrive home accomplishing the mission. Like in that order, those are like the things that we want to do. So no sheep, no goat, nothing is like worth putting someone else at risk, putting a relationship at risk. Like it just shouldn't be like that. So choose your hunting partners wisely is what I'd say in a long-winded way.
Yeah, it's awesome. Lots of reflection here as you're talking. And I know anyone that's this is maybe their first fall that they're heading out there. And I know lots of times personally, like you put so much effort like going into this first hunt or any hunt, and you're like planning, and you've got like every little minutia and every little moment. But the one thing like I've failed, and I still fall into this trap. It's like, you don't actually envision like stepping off the airplane that first time. Like you get there, and it's just like, it is a mental mind game that in itself. You're just like, when that airplane leaves, or you're in the Alpine for that first time, and you're just like now you're there, and it's just like, it's almost a surreal experience. Like it just takes a couple minutes where you have to like get your brain recaged, and you kind of And I like your strategy about having like a hunt plan, right? Because like there's been so many times where I've thought of every eventuality, then I got off the airplane and I'm like, I haven't thought about shit. I don't know. First of all, I don't even know where to go right now. And then like as you get down, you're like, I forgot to bring, and inevitably, I don't know if this happens to you personally. There's been so many times I pull my gear out, and I'm a rookie by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm like looking through my stuff. I'm like, how did I not bring whatever? There's always one thing that I left behind. I'm just like, and then I've got three of something I didn't need.
Spoon, shit tickets, headlamp. Those are the three. Those are
Yeah.
like the spoon gets people, and it's gotten me. But the spoon, the like you're carving out a spoon.
Well, and then so one year I was like, oh yeah, like, and I have had that. So one year I brought two spoons. I'm like,
Yeah,
why would you do that? Like, that's just stupid, man. So yeah, it's just, yeah, it's crazy, but yeah, I think, to your point about the mental toughness and the mental mind game and, just sort of, trying to be in the moment and trying to anticipate. And because I really find like when that airplane first leaves, it's like,
hmm
oh, it's just that deep breath. It's like, okay, here we are. Like this is, you're so focused throughout the entire planning and the whole year, and and then that airplane goes, and you're just sitting there going, okay, now we're just here. It's just like now just figure it out, right? So,
it's a huge energy shift too. It's actually one of my favorite feelings in the world.
mm,
As soon
yeah,
as it goes away, because it's like a big part of why I'm out there now, and maybe you're the same, is to be not connected, not have
absolutely.
a screen. So when that plane goes away, it's like there goes everything, my job, everything that I was sort of thinking about, and now it's like we're looking up at this mountain, and here's what we have going on. So, yeah, I think there's a good saying that runs through my head is like people want to think that they're going to rise to the occasion, but the reality is they are going to fall to their level of preparation. Like they're not going to just kind of
Yeah.
magically like, oh, I'm going to just like rise to the occasion. It's like, no, you're actually going to fall to the level of preparation. So, um, yeah, I think focusing on the right things as people are preparing here for the next, 6, 8 weeks as they're getting ready, next couple of months. Um, I think about those big things. Think about the mental side of stuff, thinking through how you're going to accomplish, the goal that you've set out. Like, what is actually the goal? Like, what are we trying to accomplish here? And that might not be killing an animal. Like that might be, hey, we want to go have a great hunt. We want to see these three drainages and hopefully see some wildlife. And if we find the right ram, like maybe we'll take it. I think we live in an instant gratification world for sure, and I think sheep hunting should not be that. That's like it's the opposite of that. It's like when
Hmm.
the year when we said when we were kids is like the year you start hunting sheep is the year your ram is born. So if you're going on your first sheep hunt, it's actually like it's supposed to take 9, 10, 11 years for you to actually take a ram from whence you started. So yeah, just embrace that. Like, and I'm actually, I've said this before too, but I'm actually somewhat jealous of the like person who's like on the journey starting off because it's so cool. And now I have like a bit of a heightened level of expectation. And I was talking about this with a buddy. I was talking to Kurt Roscoe, formerly at Stone Glacier. Like we were drinking a beer at Reno here this last year, and I'm like, are you like that? Like, do you have this sort of expectation now where you're like there was times when we were kids, it's like if we go and see an animal like on this like week long hunt, like we are heroes. If we go see a sheep, even more. If we see a ram, like if we see a legal ram somewhere off in the distance, could be legal, might have just been a bush or a rock, like can't tell, but we're like, yes. And now we have this like, oh well, no, it's like we want to see more and like have this level of success. And like the reality is the only thing that's changed is like our expectation. And so it's actually kind of fun to be. That's why I like trying new things. Like, okay, I'm gonna like start doing these like stupid ultra marathons on trail for some reason, and it's like I'm brand new at it, so I don't know anything. So I get to go and have this like novel experience. Whereas the person I'm running beside in the race is like checking their watch and they want to hit these times, and I'm like, yeah, cool, like whatever. And like actually, a great little side story is like I did the one here, the Wild Horse Traverse here in Kelowna in May, and this guy's in front of me. This guy's like maybe early 50s, late 40s, and I'm like, okay, he's chugging along, and he's wearing a short sleeve neon shirt, and he's got this horn coming underneath his arm, like a tattoo. And I'm like, oh, that's a sheep horn. Like it's for sure a sheep horn. Like I just recognized it, and it's not like a cartoony one that someone would get that would think it was a sheep or a goat or a demonic god or something. It's like that's a total like legit sheep horn. And so I catch up to him. I'm like, hey, is that a sheep? He said, yeah. I said, are you a sheep hunter? And he said, yeah. And we end up. So we did this basically like 6 hour race. We ended up for 2 hours of the race, just like doing the whole thing together, talking about sheep hunting. He's an Alberta guy. He's telling me a story of this ram that he killed last year in the bow zone. And anyways, side story of like the community of sheep hunting is like so cool. There was, I don't know, 400 people in the race. There's probably 2 people, maybe more. There's probably more. I saw some guys wearing some hunting hats and stuff, but there was like 2 people that had this thing in common that were like immediately bonded and like swapping sheep hunting stories as we were huffing and puffing up there. But yeah, that's just like, I like that. I like trying new things. And so I think that's probably why I'm always like, oh, I'll go to this spot. There's like a newness and a novelty to it. So yeah, if anyone's listening to this that it could take something away, it's like you're at the start of a really cool journey that like, I don't know if you feel this way, Kyle, but like I'm a little bit jealous of, and maybe you are too. It's like you want it so bad. Oh, I just like want to get it figured out. But it's like embrace the process and the journey of it, because it's actually like really cool to look back and be like, wow, this is where we are now, and that's what we were doing. And you got to do it to experience. I guess if we're gonna like sign off and leave people with something, if I could leave somebody with something, it'd be like, go do it. Like book the trip, like buy the gear, like do it. Like life is short, and you're going to learn something no matter what. You're going to learn something about sheep hunting, but like, that's actually not even the point. It's like, you're going to learn something about life. You're going to learn something about your brother that you get these like 10 days a year to spend time with each other, or whoever you get to go on the hunt with. Like, go do it. You're going to learn something about your wife. Like, you're going to learn something about yourself. Like, go do it. And like, that is the essence and the gift of mountain hunting for me is like what you get to learn, the experience that you get to have. And yeah, if you see some sheep along the way or some grizzly bears and you go to these really beautiful spots, like that's awesome. But I would just say go do it. Like, don't like experience, like you can listen to podcasts and there's so much information, but like go do it and you will learn 10 times as much as you will listening to podcasts of me and Kyle pretending to know like we know what we're talking about here.
I'm not even pretending, brother. Epic. That is epic. Go do it. Love it. Absolutely awesome. Love it. Appreciate you. Appreciate everything you do for our community. And man, it was a seminar today, just sitting back and listening. And it's got me fired up. I'm so excited now. Like I'm just fired up. I can't wait to get after it. So appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
No problem. Well, what's your sheep hunting plan? Are you guys going to get out?
It's evolving. I lost my last sheep hunting partner 2 years ago. Just different. He's off doing some other stuff, actually out of the country. And then so Melanie was going this year, so we're pretty fired up. And then she's having some injury stuff, and we're not quite sure that this is the year for her first sheep hunt. So when I'm gonna get off this podcast, I'm gonna go say her, go do it. Just do it. I'm going to tell her. So, but yeah, we'll see. I'm not too confident it's going to happen. So we'll see what happens. But
yeah, it's tough. The injury thing is tough too, because like that is like sort of the asterisk. Like, yeah, you don't want to get into a spot where you're putting yourself at risk. And injuries, like, yeah, they are no fun. They are no fun. If you have back, knees, joints, hips, ankles, feet. Yeah. After we had the kid Frank, he's like, my feet are like a size bigger and none of my boots fit and my feet hurt all the time. Like, oh no, that's like not good for a sport where you're on your feet, 8 hours a day. So
no.
I get it, man. But well, hopefully you guys can do something if it's not this year, maybe next.
Yeah, definitely getting out, and whether or not it's going to be chasing sheep, and then I've literally put in for a plethora of LEH for both the two of us, and so maybe get lucky with the LEH draw there, and if not, then definitely I'm getting out this fall for sure. I missed last year, actually, full on missed it. We were in the process of relocating, building a house, and a whole bunch of other
Yep.
stuff, and not a good excuse. In fact, I intended to go, but it just didn't happen. So go do it. Go do it. That's the Foss mantra. I'm doing it, man. So
Go do it. Yeah. And yeah, it's crazy how time goes, man. I mean, like the summers and they just go so quick. And um, yeah, you only get so many Augusts and so many Septembers.
yeah, well, yeah. Well, especially when you get to my age, you're like you start doing the math. It's like, no, you better get after it, buddy. So
You'll
yeah,
do it.
yeah, awesome. Appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I'm excited to hear the rest of these as they come out.
Yeah, awesome. Appreciate you.